Okay, welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today we're really jumping into quite a fascinating stack of source material. It's all focused on men, their energy, and, finding purpose in today's world.
Exactly. And this body of work, it really digs into these themes pretty deeply. It draws some, well, maybe surprising lines between things like habits, hormones, health,
And ambition, ultimately.
ambition.
So our mission, I guess, for this deep dive is to try and cut right to the core of what these sources are actually saying.
Mm-hmm.
We want to unpack their perspective on, let's say, modern masculinity, how they frame biological urges,
Yeah, and how energy management fits into that whole picture.
and crucially, how, according to this material at least, you go about building a life that's defined by discipline and purpose.
And what I found particularly insightful, is how this work connects something as, well, seemingly fundamental as physical energy directly to things like mental control and actually achieving your long-term goals. It really argues that your internal state, your energy, is foundational to, well, pretty much everything else.
Okay, so let's start where this material seems to start,
Mm.
which is, interestingly, with a kind of redefinition of the man.
Mm.
It argues it's not just about your biology.
Hmm.
It's more like a journey.
That's definitely one of its first striking points.
Yeah.
Yeah, it defines man not just by, physical traits,
Right.
but by mindset, by having a mission and a certain level of maturity.
Yeah.
It really tries to tackle the unique pressures men face today, and it underscores why having a strong kind of internally defined identity is so critical for navigating all of that.
And it has this, I thought, incredibly powerful line that really sums up its view. A real man is not one who conquers women, but one who conquers his weaknesses.
Oh, yeah, that quote is absolutely central. It immediately shifts the focus, doesn't it? Away from external validation or, dominance over others.
Towards inner mastery.
Exactly. Inner mastery as the true measure of this kind of, let's call it, strength.
Okay, so flowing from that idea, that internal control, the source then dives, like headfirst, into what it calls the urge,
Mm.
specifically addressing masturbation. And
Yeah.
it brings it up in a very direct way,
Mhm.
but not really judgmental.
Yes, it positions this urge as, a natural, powerful, biological drive, but it argues the issue isn't the urge itself.
But how we understand it.
Precisely. As it states, masturbation is not evil. Ignorance about it is.
Okay, and here's where it gets, I think, really interesting from this material's perspective on energy specifically.
Yeah.
It details what happens during ejaculation, the release of nutrients, things it calls important building blocks for your body,
Right, the biological side.
the sudden rush of feel-good chemicals, that dopamine spike,
Mm.
and then crucially, that really noticeable drop afterwards in both physical and mental energy.
And it uses this quite vivid analogy. It says, imagine your body as a powerhouse. Every release is like a mini blackout. Your energy needs time to recharge.
That's a strong image.
It is. And again, it's not really presenting this as a moral judgment. It's making a direct link between managing the specific biological energy,
And your overall drive.
your
right?
drive, your productivity, yeah.
One thing I did appreciate is that this material tries to offer some practical help for avoiding that feeling afterwards, that post-act guilt or slump some might feel.
Mm.
It strongly encourages self-awareness, like tracking your patterns, and then consciously redirecting that powerful energy somewhere else. It even gives this mantra, relapse isn't failure, it's feedback. Learn and level up.
Which, naturally raises the core question, how do you consciously channel this natural, powerful energy then?
Right.
And the material explores the benefits of, say, intentional abstinence or at least conscious control.
What kind of benefit?
Well, it cites things like increased clarity, better discipline, and just a greater sense of control over one's impulses generally. It explicitly links channeling this energy into what it describes as greatness,
Okay.
creating this really sharp contrast between, fleeting, short-term pleasure and building something lasting, like a long-term legacy.
That idea of legacy definitely feels like a cornerstone here. And there's another strong quote that kind of drives this home. The whole gives you heat for a moment. The goal gives you glory for a lifetime.
Wow, okay. Very direct.
Very direct. And it connects this back to really practical daily habits.
Yeah.
Consistency, financial discipline.
And especially delayed gratification. That comes up a lot.
Yes, definitely.
And if we sort of zoom out a bit and connect this to the bigger picture the source is painting,
Okay.
it heavily emphasizes building not just purpose, but also the accompanying health and wealth alongside it.
Right, it's a package deal in this view.
Kind of. And it suggests specific mental strategies for like rewiring your behavior. Things like using affirmations, deliberately structuring your environment, establishing really solid routines.
And proactively identifying and avoiding your triggers.
Yeah.
Being conscious of them.
Exactly. Being very conscious.
It even maps out different life stages through this specific lens, seeing youth as maybe a time of confusion, the 20s as really crucial for getting a handle on the urge and building identity.
Right.
The 30s focus more on ambition, and then the 40s and beyond turning towards legacy.
So it frames this as a continuous process, growth over time, not some demand for instant perfection.
Which feels more realistic, perhaps?
Maybe.
Yeah.
And this perspective then naturally leads into the material's view of what it calls true dominance.
Ah, okay. How does it define that?
Well, interestingly, it's not defined by aggression or, control over other people.
No.
No, it's more about internal alignment. Becoming a man who can lead himself first, who knows how to listen, and who actually lifts others up. There's a very clear link made between self-respect and self-control. The idea being you respect yourself enough to exert control over your own actions and desires.
Self-control.
Yeah.
Specifically, maybe, in having the strength to say no to that constant craving for external validation.
Yeah.
And a really strong yes to your own internal values and your own vision.
Exactly.
And this material also brings it back powerfully to the physical body again, discussing metabolism, but in a slightly less traditional way, I thought.
Yeah, what I found fascinating there is how it views metabolism as, well, far more than just how many calories you happen to burn.
Right. It's not just about weight.
No, it describes it more like your body's fundamental operating system.
Yeah.
And it's intrinsically linked to how you live your life. It connects your lifestyle, your sex drive, the food you eat, your fitness level.
All of it.
All of it. And argues that a man's metabolism fundamentally drives his energy levels, his mood, his mental clarity, even his charisma, it suggests.
Charisma.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it suggests that optimizing it through diet, sleep, exercise, and importantly, developing mental strength is really key to unlocking your overall potential.
This work really seems to try and empower you, the listener, doesn't it? Saying things like, you're not alone in these struggles, that you have this inherent potential. It calls it the spark.
Right, the spark.
You just might need some direction. It actively aims to dismantle certain myths, particularly the idea that a man's worth or attractiveness lies primarily in just physical appearance.
Yeah, it pushes back on that quite hard. It argues that women, according to this specific view, of course, are drawn much more powerfully to things like purpose, presence, and emotional maturity.
So it's a clear call to action, then, to consciously work towards becoming the kind of man you yourself would personally admire.
Pretty much. To take that potent youthful energy, which it acknowledges, and channel it specifically into, say, wealth-building habits, to commit to consistency even when it feels hard, to cultivate patience, and, maybe most importantly, according to this, to master control over your immediate desires.
So finally, the material does briefly touch on the type of woman a man operating from this place of purpose truly needs.
How does it describe her?
As someone who genuinely supports, uplifts, and respects his mission, rather than being, a source of distraction or draining his energy, it strongly emphasizes an alignment of values over just superficial appearance.
Right, so alignment over aesthetics, basically.
Yeah, that seems to be the message.
Ultimately, then, the journey of the new man, as it's presented in the source material, it's really about intentionally choosing to live a life marked by discipline, a sustained hunger for growth, undeniable clarity, and a focus on contribution beyond just oneself.
It really positions you, the listener, as the architect of your own life, with your personal energy being the fundamental building block. The core message just resonates so powerfully throughout. Control your energy, build your empire, respect your body, protect your vision, chase purpose, not pleasure.
The central argument, really, is that understanding and mastering control over that fundamental energy, well, it's the absolute bedrock.
The foundation.
The foundation upon which you build the life you authentically want and are actually capable of achieving.
So, okay, we've taken quite a deep dive into the source material today. We've explored its framework for what it means to be a man.
Right, how to understand and potentially channel those natural urges.
The importance it places on building powerful habits, and how physical vitality is seen as intrinsically linked to your overall life purpose.
We've definitely seen how it makes this compelling case that managing your energy isn't just about physical well-being.
No.
It's profoundly connected to mental sharpness, self-discipline, and that focused pursuit of significant long-term goals.
Right. It really does all cycle back to this central idea, doesn't it? That
Yeah.
controlling your energy is the fundamental key. It's the fuel, really.
Yeah, the fuel.
For building what actually matters to you, and for consistently choosing purpose over whatever fleeting pleasure might just, present itself.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of leaves us, and you listening, with this challenge drawn straight from the source material we looked at. If controlling your energy is the key, what specific habit, or perhaps desire, will you choose to bring into conscious control this week?
A powerful question to end on.